Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Levine. I'm so glad you're here. I have a pile of books for you that are, they're all pretty satisfying, I would say. Nothing's like a 5-star, but it's this nice, satisfying pile of books. The first one that I just finished, actually last night, is Ogre, Enchanted. And it is written by Gail, Carson, Levine, who also wrote Ella, Enchanted. And I don't know why I came back to this author. I think I had a note in one of my old book diaries that to go back to this author and grab something. So this was what I picked up. I don't really know what prompted it. But she has quite a lot of writing: novels, The Princess Tales, a couple of picture books, and 2 nonfiction books on writing. So she's such a good writer that I think I might pick up the book on writing just to see. Creating Stories That Fly, or From Think to Ink. So maybe if you're a writer out there, those are 2 books that might interest you. So Ogre Enchanted is a similar kind of a story that we've got a bit of a fairy tale that maybe is part of the background, but this is a fairy tale that just moves pretty much independently of some pre-existing story. And we've got the main character is Evie, or Evie, I'm not sure, but I called her Evie. And along the way, we bump into the, ambiguous fairy. Is she a good fairy? Is she a bad fairy? She thinks of herself as quite good, but the gifts that she gives cause quite a lot of pandemonium and unhappiness, but she, in her mind, thinks, like it just couldn't be any better than this. So she dispenses these gifts, and she's particularly interested in wedding proposals, like marriage proposals. And she just seems to show up just as someone is gathering their nerve. And she particularly likes to show up if one of the people in the proposal are going to say no. I don't know how she senses it, but she just shows up at these moments. So if someone says no, then she casts this spell of chaos, and that's what we're talking about in this book. So Evie has a childhood friend she calls Wormy, which is just, I'm sorry, that's just not a nice name. I don't like it. But Wormy is a very nice character, and he's in love with Evie, and they're quite young, 15, and he proposes, and she's just very, very focused on her life, which is a healer. And because he's been around so much, he's just kind of like the little brother, and she doesn't have any sense that this is coming her way. And she's very practical and says to him, well, we're just too young. Why would you want to do that? Besides, there are plenty of other girls out there. I'm not sure I want to get married. So the fairy, the good bad fairy, Lucinda, casts a spell, and we're off. Evie has been turned into an ogre. Of course, ogres are just always the bad guys. And I had anticipated a little bit of the sort of Shrek part of a story, where the ogre isn't the bad person necessarily, or let's say the species of ogre isn't necessarily bad, but just misunderstood. So this is part of what we explore in the story. Is Evie bad because she's an ogre? Is she good because she has these human healing instincts? What's Wormy going to do? And she's got to find true love along the way. So she's now on the hunt for... 10 minutes ago, she wasn't going to marry Wormy, and now she's got 90 days or something to find true love. So off she goes, and it's a really fun adventure. I think that her healing skills are pretty solid. We don't get a whole lot of crazy recipes. That's one of the things that always worries me when I read potion books, is just sort of the insanity of some of the recipes. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. There are multiple people in this story that either are resoundingly not on Evie's side or are on Evie's side, and sometimes they're in the same family, or sometimes they're in the same clan, and the court of the king, so on. So we get to see all kinds of different interactions with Evie and her plight as an ogre. One of the, sort of sub-themes, of course, is just being other, being unlike the majority around you, being a misunderstood entity. It's you can put yourself in any kind of a combination where there's opposition, like Catholic versus Protestant in Ireland, or we can take it anywhere from there. And so this is a nice way of looking at how you other people and how you come to look beyond the surface. I thought this was really charming. It is a middle reader book, although the protagonists are 15. So if you like a fun fairy tale, then I don't see any reason why a young adult wouldn't read this. But as an adult, I love a new fairy tale. I'm kind of tired of fairy tales that are being retold, because so many people have retold them, and eventually we get to the sort of end of possibilities. There's only so many flavors of chocolate. All right, these two are a continuation of Tirza Price's, at the moment, 3-part series, and it's the Jane Austen murder mystery series. I don't know whether she's going to keep going with it or not. It's nicely done. This one is from 2022, and this is 2021, and I think the other one that I read was 2023. I'm not positive about that. So it's possible there are more coming out. And we've got, who have we got here? In this one, we've got Lizzie Bennet, whose father is a lawyer, and she's decided at 17 that she is also going to be a lawyer. And she bumps into Darcy, and he is coming from a lawyering family as well, and so they're going to be at odds over a murder that Darcy's friend has committed or not. And so that's what all the tension is around. And so this is a Regency era book. And this one was the Dashwood family, Eleanor Dashwood and her sister Marianne. And they are the daughters of Mr. Dashwood, who had an investigating sort of detective company. And although the Dashwoods were in, the edges of proper society because he was a businessman and did it directly, they were, frowned upon. So Mr. Dashwood is murdered, and Marianne and Eleanor have to figure out what's going on. And some of the storyline follows the Dashwoods that you would see in a Jane Austen novel, as in they're asked to leave the family home, and they come upon really restricted finances, and what are they going to do around that besides getting married? So they decide that they want to continue in their dad's detective agency, but also Eleanor is someone who's very interested in chemistry. So we see her trying to overcome the blockages to a woman being educated in the sciences. So it's got some very interesting background Regency prejudices, I guess, against women. So, it's a nice series. I enjoy it. I think it's a really good lightweight read. I think I read the one pretty much in a day. I think it was Saturday and it was pouring rain. My question for this series is if the characters had not been Jane Austen characters, would it have really suffered? If it had just been Betty Smith and Mr. Greyapple, I don't think this would have been less. I've got the sentence backwards. I think this would be equally as fine a mystery and set of characters that are all kind of interacting. If she had just gone with her own characters, I didn't find there. I think I haven't read Mansfield Park, but I'm not positive around that. But I didn't feel that because they were Lizzie Bennet or Eleanor Dashwood or have you, it set out some plot moments. It set out some dialogue moments that would have been recaptured but paraphrased from the original Austen. I don't know. I felt that the storyline and the characters were strong enough that they didn't have to be Jane Austen characters, but certainly from a marketing point of view, or if you're just toggling in Jane Austen era type books, modern authors, what have you, these would come up. And so I think that it's got a wider readership than it would if it was Regency era women mystery solvers, So yeah, I just don't know how much is marketing and how much is actually necessary. So, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed reading them. No Fixed Address is definitely for younger readers. Susan Nielsen. It's Canadian, and that's nice. And it's about a mom and a son who have, through a series of just not anything particularly that they've done wrong, it's just kind of world events that get them into trouble. They have the misfortune of purchasing a condo that's on soggy ground, and so it's going to cost them $40,000 to pitch in to rescue this condo building. They don't have that, so they have to sell the condo at a loss, and they just keep getting into trouble. Excuse me, in terms of housing. Mom is struggling with a bit of depression, but I didn't find that her depression was anything worse than anything I've had when things start to go south, but she occasionally has a few bad days, but she pulls herself back up after a couple of days and onwards. So she's not deeply depressed. The two of them managed to come across, you can see it there, it's a Vanagon, 1987. Pardon me. And I thought this was fun because ours is 1982 or 1983. They end up having to live in the van full time for what they thought would just be a month, but as Mom's job hunting is not going well, the economy is just not very friendly to her kind of job. She's an artist, teaching art, and she was a secretary, but at this moment in the economy, this is not where she's going to get hired, and ends up having to go in as a waitress, and she's a terrible waitress. So she's not keeping her jobs, and that's just, she's in the wrong job, basically. And so they keep running into conflicts and problems, and they're trying to keep their living in the van a secret. He's at school, he's really loving it, and does not want to have to lose his ability to go to that school by having to move to a new neighborhood. So they're struggling with being homeless in the neighborhood for the school that he wants to be in, and there's just other things that are happening, and he is one of the people that do really well on the show Jeopardy. So it's like there's a game show similar to that, and so he runs an application for him to be one of the junior contestants on this, and he thinks that by winning the money he will save everything, right? Of course, it's not as simple as all that. I liked this book. I didn't think that it brought anything new to this particular dilemma, except that it was Canadian. And I think it's kind of a gateway book in a sense that nothing really awful happens to anybody. So if you've got a student or a child who's interested in some of the homeless issues, this is a nice introduction to those things that you come across other homeless people and some of the facilities and Children's Aid. And so you get a very nice rounded picture of what all the encounters that you would face if you were becoming marginally housed or completely unhoused, if you were someone from a middle-class family who's just fallen into this terrible hole. So good book in terms of that, so not really bringing anything new to the genre, but this is me as an adult speaking, because I've read quite a lot on this topic for little kids to adults and older people, seniors, so I'm fairly well versed in the homeless situation, and I think it's just, a good beginner book for that topic. All right, the one that I read and had the most hopes for, and it didn't quite manifest, is Weyward by Emilia Hart. This is a debut novel, and it won the highly commended by the Caledonian First Novel Prize. And it's taking place I think it's in London, can't remember which town it is. We have 3 different time frames going on. 1619 with Alpha. We've got 1942 with Violet. And we've got contemporary times with Kate. And each one of these ladies is she a witch, or is she just someone who's extremely sensitive to the natural world around them? And so the women of this line, the Weyward line, which in Old English would be pronounced weird, the first female in each generation is generally very, very attuned to the natural world and the gardens and the herbs, and so they're healers, as in older medicine type things. And in the 1619s, this is when the witch trials, witch hunts are starting to happen in England. Yeah, so it does take place in England. In 1942, we've got Violet, who's a very young girl whose father had married her mother, obviously. Well, no, not obviously, but you know what I mean. And the mom had been this very sensitive kind of person, and the father had really just been looking to get the most beautiful woman, and mom doesn't survive the marriage. So Violet is an orphan with her brother, Greg. And so you've got this very interesting brother-sister dynamic happening where he is, the brother is just very accepting of Violet, but the dad isn't. So it's a very peculiar happening in the line of the Weyward girls. And then we come up with Kate, who for a long time we're not really sure how she fits in the picture, and she has an abusive relationship that she's trying to get away from. And I don't think I want to tell you anything more because we're going to head into the world of spoilers. But how are each of these women going to navigate that moment in time where their powers have been discovered by others and they are at risk of exposure, and also having to make some fairly intricate life decisions about what they're going to do with their powers, and also not do with certain powers. And I'm not talking about Bewitched, you know, where they winkle their wings and off they fly on a broomstick. No, it's more definitely in the world of healing, what they sometimes called hedge witches. So this was a case of perhaps not being in the right frame of mind for a good book. Every time I picked it up, I was just very fatigued and would start to drift off. And I'm pretty sure it was me, because I would sit down and think, oh, I'm so tired, and I would just pick it up, and then I would drift off. So I'm pretty sure the book wasn't boring. I really enjoyed what I was reading when I was awake. And when I was drifting off to sleep, I was enjoying it because it was so soft and gentle. Ultimately, I ended up giving this book sort of a 3.5, partly because I had missed probably 25% of the books. What would you say? Like, I just was too sleepy for 25% of the book. So based on that, I gave it about a 3.5. I think if I'd been a little more alert, I would have given it a 4. I really liked each of the female characters. I really liked the dilemmas they were up against. We've got one history that's being told in reverse. So if you do not like a multiple time shift, I think this one might be worth it, because you get very, very clear delineations between each time shift. We don't have people, you know, their lives are quite different, so you don't have parallel things happening where you're wondering, oh, did this happen with her or with her? It's pretty clear and crisp about that. And they don't really overlap in terms of knowing of each other either. So that part is also makes for a much clearer reading if you're not a timeline person. That's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye for now.